about Portuguese driving schools and Babashka. Applause.
Okay, really happy to be here and with all of you. And so today I want to talk about this project I've been working on since maybe 2015, early 2015, and how Babashka is helping to speed things up. So a bit about me. So I've got a master's in mechanical engineering, did research for a couple of years. Then turn of events, I was doing, I went to London in 2015 already as a web developer, and I started doing Clojure pretty much ever since. That's an interesting story if you want to catch up later. So currently I'm contracting. So, okay, enough about me. Yeah, a bit of context. So this was in, I got my driver's license in 2014, so this was still in the wake of the 2009 recession. And in Portugal, and I assume other places as well, but in Portugal this was really noticeable. A wave of low-cost, everyday businesses just swept the country, and driving schools are no exception. And so pretty much what you had, what you were selecting for was just cheap prices. And so because there was no proper feedback system, you were just relying on anecdotal evidence from other students. And this created a race to the bottom, and quality followed suit. And discussing with other students, so for instance, I had my driving instructor at some point piling up 2 motorbike instructions with mine. And there were other episodes, and just discussing with people, I realized, well, if these guys don't have, are not failing people on purpose, they certainly don't have incentives to make a good job at helping them pass the exam either. And I figured that if that was the case, if something sinister was happening, then you would be able to see a trend in the data. And so I was lucky because in early 2015, the data for the last year got released. And this is just a sample of what was happening in schools around my university. So I could have picked one of these. So mine was at a 51% pass rate. So pass rate meaning, okay, I don't have to explain. Yeah, if I had access to this data, I don't think I would have chosen the cheaper one, that's for sure. And it ended up costing more money. So yeah, I decided to do just it was pretty much a basic visualization layer. So I scraped the pass rates. This was just a series of PDFs tucked into some government website, the driving authority website, and I crossed it with location data so that people could actually have access to the data. And all of a sudden, you know, like data came to life, and people were seeing it, and they were using it. They were writing to us. I was getting all these emails on my inbox, giving me positive feedback. Some businesses giving me, like, they were a bit mad. But the problem was that now that data was visible, and the driving authority stopped publishing it. So I had a problem at hand, because people were just writing to me, just completely trashing me, saying, oh, this website would be such a good idea if it had, if the data weren't stale. And it's like, it's not my problem. I just did the basic project. But I felt I had taken a step that I couldn't back away from. So I decided to go after this data. And that's when I learned to do Freedom of Information Acts. And yeah, the driving authority just wasn't willing to collaborate, didn't reply to my Freedom of Information Act. I got the feeling that they just, like, who are you? Who do you think you are to ask for this data? Are you, like, who are you, concerned citizen? And so, but things do work in Portugal. So there's an authority, you can write to it, it's a bit slow. Eventually they came back to me, and they said, driving authority, please give the data to this gentleman. And they said no. And the excuse was that, oh, it's 1.5 million exams over the last 3 years, so that's too much data to process. unless unless they were thinking about processing it by hand, it didn't make any sense. And then I went up at yet another level, so I learned what an ombudsman was, and yeah, eventually it replied. So things do work. They take a little bit of time, but in 2019 I just felt, no, this is just doing more harm than good. I'm just going to take the app offline. It was really difficult for me. Yeah, but I felt the DA is the DA. I'm just, like putting this project together. But I felt personally responsible for it. But then at some point the ombudsman replies saying, yep, like has the problem been solved? And in the meantime it had been solved effectively. And certainly it wasn't just me complaining. Other people, like the impression I got from the schools was that this was a really bad issue and other people wanted this solved. So eventually they released 6 years worth of data. So that was the excuse to redo this app. And okay, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So, yeah, how Babashka is helping to make things easier. So the starting point, the initial app was running on Heroku. I was paying $7 a month. It adds up, especially if you're running other projects. And at least for a couple of times, they made breaking changes that when you don't want to worry about that project right now, it's really annoying, especially because it exposes you to the NPM ecosystem. All of a sudden, a bunch of things got deprecated. And so requirements for the new app, cheap, low maintenance, no servers. I just wanted something I could leave there running without having to worry about it. And so that's when I came across this blog post from Eccentric J, and outlining a solution with on-shared servers with Babashka. And I really liked how simple it was, not having to worry about servers. So going serverless. So several advantages, no servers. You don't have to worry about that. A single dependency. Later on I added pods, but I just went live with just Babashka as a single dependency. And so, yeah, you get an account. I'm paying like around 10 euros per month. And I get to run all my personal projects and others. A friend starting a business, I can help him with that. And I get to write HTML with a hiccup. That's always nice. Yeah, single powerful language across the stack. And I could be potentially looking into a performance hit in terms of concurrency versus JVM Clojure. But for this use case, that wouldn't be a problem. So what is the use case? Data changes once a year, so that's I have mainly one bulk update, which is the pass rates, that hopefully get released every year. So it will be mainly gets, the schools and listings, and so at some point I want to have schools writing price data and updating their information, because upstream from the DA website sometimes data doesn't match the actual school's data. So I want to have schools writing to the database. Okay, a quick note about server-side rendering. I really like it. I love how snappy it feels. Another thing was SEO was important. I didn't want to worry about what the crawlers were able to render or not. So this was really about removing the biggest amount of unknowns. So I felt going the SPA route was just not suitable. I would have to go isomorphic as well. For me, it was really necessary for the document to come already rendered from the server. And so going isomorphic, that would just add a lot of complexity. And the other thing is a pleasant surprise how HTMX kind of abstracted hiccup as if it were a component. And I'm going to talk more about this. And the other thing about this approach is how you can cut through all of these framework complexity and delivering a functionality with just a single dependency and a powerful language, obviously. So the data pipeline. So I'm using there's actually a bug in this script, but that's not important. I hope no one notices. So yeah, I'm orchestrating this with a Babashka task. So basically I have an NBB script with a puppeteer, and it just builds a collection of clicks through the DA website, gets the href. And then when I have the hiccup, I can walk through that data and get the information I need. And then if there's any change, I just clean that up. And what I'm doing is I didn't want to use, at the time I didn't know what to expect in terms of running a separate process for the database and making these requests. I didn't know how much that was going to add to the request. So the solution I found was writing kind of pre-rendered queries for the school. So I write everything down in an Eden file, and so it's about 1,400 schools plus listings, and that's what gets rendered in the template. And yeah, and what I do is, it's really important for me because I've had in the past businesses writing saying, "Oh, your data is wrong. You're messing with my business," and it's true. So I really needed to have like an audit trail. So immutability for me was important, and this was a way of me having those guarantees of knowing exactly when that change got introduced in the system, without having to run something like an immutable database. So yeah, in the end, I just diff everything, and I get like an overview of what changed. So it's like me going from a really chaotic and pleasant thing like web scraping to getting this guarantee. Okay, I know where I'm at. This is the web architecture. So basically, there's an Apache server running on the host. You just passing the request to my index.clj has a router and a template, and again applies the template to that Eden file and just returns the HTML string. So how does the request lifecycle look like? So there's the shebang, and then, well, Apache just sets the environment variables and the standard in when it executes the Babashka script. And then there's a router component, and basically this is where I apply. So this is obviously very simplified, but you can see the actual code because it's public, and then returns the string. And so obviously you can only do so much with server-side rendering. So I needed to do a search box, and I wanted to get rid of all Google and like just privacy reasons. And obviously having an autocomplete for addresses is really cool. And so the solution I found was just because I could get away with it because my search space was quite small, just the names of the schools plus listings. So I put everything in the JavaScript, and with leaflet and HTMX, it's around 130 kilobytes. So this is how. So I just do a find on these terms, and you can check the app. And it's actually quite performant. I was happy with it. Okay, the other thing is I needed to add an email form because previously there was a contact form on the website, and people were actually using it. And just having an email doesn't convert. I don't understand these things, but it just doesn't convert as well. Having like a pop-up where people actually type a message was resulting in me getting actually a lot of feedback that was driving the whole process. And for you to know that you're not just building things for yourself. And so, yeah, I wanted to create that was the motivation to create a form. And I was really surprised by how with HTMX, so I just had to add an endpoint that returns when you submit the form, that returns the form with a success or failure message. And I was really surprised how the form that I'm returning is actually the form that piece of hiccup that I'm returning is that piece of hiccup that got rendered in a template. And I don't know, just one of those things that I found really, really elegant. Okay, I should have shown this. So this is the actual code for the form. I had to introduce another dependency. This is part of my Docker file setup, my development environment. And I had to do something like this in the shared host. So internationalization, this is more like what I think is a really cool feature of Clojure more than anything. So this is just me, adding support for multiple languages. So I have a map, has all the copy I need, and then it's just a macro that expects lang to be available, so that now I just have syntactic sugar. I don't have to worry about like passing the extra variable. I just felt how I could do internationalization with just using the bare features of the language. I don't know, I find this elegant. So just to finish off by showing some A/B testing, this is one concurrent request. so it's going through the entire request lifecycle, rendering the template, getting the data from the file system, rendering the template. So I'm averaging at 200 milliseconds, and I have an echo endpoint that is the same request lifecycle, but just so goes through the router, but just doesn't render anything or doesn't anything fancy, just returns an echo message. It's comparable. And then 10 concurrent requests, then 20, then 50, then 100. So the important thing is I don't get failed requests, and for my use case, I don't expect to have 100 people at the same time, like hammering the server. So yeah, just for completeness. And that concludes the talk. Thank you, Raul and Timo, for the really nice feedback they gave to this talk. Thanks for everyone that contributed to this project in more than one way over the years. Yeah, thank you for the organizers of this lovely conference. And yeah, you can find everything. You can find the app, and everything is on github.com/Clojure. That's the UI and the data that I scraped from the website, and I publish it. As in, okay, see guys, this is what I wanted to, this is the type of format I wanted to have in the beginning. Yeah, and yeah, that's it.
Apache, CGI, I sense some Perl coming up. We have questions from the audience, maybe.
Hey, very nice talk, and I think it's very nice when you use public data to do something useful, so thanks for that. Two questions, in fact, like, how did the schools receive the fact that now they were like publicly being graded?
That's a tricky question. It's also because yeah, I did something that now I would have done like completely different. So in 2016, when I published the first version, I went on Facebook Graph API, I think, and I got the emails from a ton of schools, and I just emailed them saying, "Oh, you're being," that's like, it was like a crazy title, and it was something really confrontational. So I would have done things very, very, very different now. But yeah, they didn't. Most of them were like trying to pick flaws at the oh, the methodology, this and that, and yeah, they were raising a really valid concern, which is there's a lot of corruption and people paying to get approved in the examination centers, and so that skews the data, and it's right. But I think the solution for that is more transparency. But I also got a lot of positive feedback from schools.
The other question is, do you have any other metric on the public data that you could show besides the approval rate, like how well the students are grading on? I suppose they should probably have theoretical courses and class, like practical tests.
Yeah, so this is when it will be really nice to have a data scientist on board, because you do have you have driving pass rates and examination and theoretical. And I have an hypothesis, which is the theoretical gives you how good the student pool is, and the driving, because you can just study on your own, and the driving gives you how good the school is, and so maybe looking at that you can get that extra insight.
Okay, this is absolutely amazing. It's so good that you just do this on the data scientist question. You should talk to Daniel. He's there. But I have a very specific technological question. What was your experience using HTMX? Do you feel like it was ergonomic? You added some reactivity to your app? Or did you feel like it was a lot of hassle?
So I'm okay. I haven't had the time to do what I want to do with it, but like the small experiment I did, I was really surprised by how reactive it was. But I don't think I have the time to run into any pain point. But I was really happy.
Okay.
Especially that part where I was returning that piece of hiccup for the form, and it was just being rendered just like that. I don't know, it's just one of those intuitive things.
Thank you.
Anything else?
What was the bug in the task, and how did you find it?
So the question was, what was the bug that you mentioned during the talk?
So in my brilliancy, what I wanted to do is just clean up the data if there's a change, if there's a modification. But that would be like a diff, not like because the final file is going to be rewritten no matter what, even if there's no diffs. And so this would have to be somehow diffing the data. Because meaning this is always going to run. It's not actually like a functionality bug, but it's the way I set this thing, it's always going to run. So it will be more like an improvement, small improvement.
Hi, this is great. You lightly touched on the SEO part of it. So did you handle all the SEO content that's necessary on the site, or is this does something handle it for you?
No, I'm just making sure that Google can see my pages and it's indexing, and that is a very lengthy, painful process. And you do mistakes, you don't. So initially, for some reason, I was disallowing crawlers on JavaScript and the CSS, and so Google couldn't. I was like, oh, just the markup is enough. But Google would look at my document and this document is rubbish. I'm not going to put this on my index. And so I had a quick spike of indexing, and then it just dropped, and I was like, what is happening? Then I figured that out. Yeah, and the other thing is because I'm using OpenStreetMaps. OpenStreetMaps disallows Google, so Google can't see the map rendered. And so I'm beginning to wonder if that's not going to affect SEO as well. So because it's like this project is a 3,000 static page generator. So there's already a lot of content, and I had the expectation that SEO is just going to come for free. And there was some technical details that prevented that. So me doing SEO is just seeing where I mess things up, basically.
So thank you. One more applause. Thank you.